much to read. I would get dangerous. It talks about the moratorium, and it includes a mechanism for allowing affected landowners to apply to a local board for relief from its restrictions. Like if we put a moratorium on, can you just touch on that a little bit for me?
If it's always the better, if we did a moratorium for you, it would have what's called a hardship use variance clause. And no matter who does it, it should always have that. It's not a gas drilling issue or anything else. Anytime you do a moratorium, a well-drafted moratorium will have this use variance clause. And in a town that has zoning, which we don't here, in a town that has zoning, it's essentially like, which may or may not mean anything since you guys don't have zoning, but it's like a regular use variance. It's a mechanism, it's a procedural mechanism for, in a town where you have zoning, to get relief where what the state defines as unnecessary hardship, where it would really be unfair to you, the way the state defines unfairness, to impose those requirements on the landowner. We don't have zoning here, but in towns where we don't have zoning, we put the hardship use variance in anyway. Normally it would be at the zoning board of appeals level. We don't have a zoning board of appeals here. So we would, if we did it, it would be at the town board level. But it's a mechanism for anybody who feels that enforcement of this law against them would cause an unnecessary hardship, the way the state defines it. And I need to be totally upfront. It's very, very hard to prove unnecessary hardship if the right standards are applied, the state's specified standards. But if they do, then they're allowed to do that use. The other thing that we put in, since you brought that up, in our moratorium is something called the grandfather clause. Grandfathering doesn't sound like a legal term, but it is. Remember the example with the hotel. Let's say that, I can't remember who had the hotel. I guess it was. So she's already got a hotel of 160 rooms, and we decide, you guys decide, because of that gaming that's coming on, that you don't want hotels more than 150 rooms. So you still pass that law, whether it's a moratorium or more permanent, but she is what's called grandfather, assuming she's legal, and that she had all the permits, that she pulled a building permit, that she got a CO, etc. She will be what's called a pre-existing, lawful, non-conforming, now non-conforming because of this law we passed use. She's grandfathered. Grandfathered means you either let her continue to operate that hotel, even though it's now, she wouldn't be able to do it now because we've got this new law of 150 rooms. Or you could say to her, we don't want that hotel anyway. And then you have to write a check to her for a take, basically a take. Nobody ever does that, and instead they just grandfather the use. So we would have, everybody would have, any good moratorium is always going to have the use variance clause in it, which is this relief valve for people who think that it's unfair to them, unnecessary hardship. And most of them don't, but we put in ours this grandfathering clause as well.